Hey there, welcome back. Okay, so in this video, I'll try to configure the logic to make a payment to Stripe and then complete an API related to that Stripe logic handling. Okay, for that, I'm going to add a secret key to make a payment to Stripe section. So, how to get a secret key from Stripe your account? There are already a lot of videos available, so you can go and refer. If in case still doubt, you can just comment for on in this video section. I'll be able to help. Okay, so for now I'm showcasing the secret key. So this is how you're going to get it. Okay, so on this secret key you will have to refer in our project. Okay, fine. Then so I'm going to add that. Here I'm going to use this. Okay, fine. So this one, yeah, the Stripe secret key is configured. So now heading back to our project card or form payment. Okay, this is where on unlock now Farmer Studio price, this is where we should make an API call. Okay, so that I'm going to configure now. So for that I'm heading to the API section, and here I'm creating a new folder under APIs folder called checkout. Okay, so that is checkout, and in this I'm going to create a file called session.ts. Okay, and in this we will add a logic to make a payment to our Stripe account. Okay, so for that we should install a dependency called Stripe. Okay, package. So just install that. Okay, use legacy pair dependency. Yeah, so Stripe is installed. Okay, so first we are going to configure the object Stripe. Okay, so let's name this as a Stripe and create a new object of that, new Stripe. Okay, and here we are going to use that environment variable which I have just configured, that is Stripe secret key, and this is mandatory. Okay, and the API version is yep. Okay, yeah. Now let's write a handler. So export default async function handler, and here two params is request, next API request, and one more is response, next API response. Yep, so we'll write in the try and catch block. Okay, first so let's name this one variable as session and make a call to the Stripe checkout sessions to create a session. Okay, so await Stripe dot checkout. This kind of details how to create and all is clearly mentioned in the documentation. If you want more info you can refer the documentation. Okay, so stripe.checkout.sessions.create. Okay, in here the params that will be passing is hello promotion codes. Yes, true. So and the metadata. Okay, metadata. Okay, project ID will be receiving in query param, so that is request dot query dot PPI as a string. Okay, so we will be receiving PPI query param. Okay, and then line items. So in this first one is price data. So currency, it is INR, okay, and unit amount. This I have configured environment variable, okay. Next, public Stripe studio price, and the product data. So product data will be just name, okay. We'll give this as a studio model training, okay. Studio model training, okay, and here mention the chart amount, okay. Process dot env dot next public studio short amount, okay, and mention the shorts. Yep. So this is the product data, okay, and then finally the quantity, so it's just one, okay, fine. Then after this, it's a mode is payment, and the success URL will be nothing but process.env dot our next auth URL, and dashboard session ID, and here the predefined variable from Stripe, we have to mention check session ID, and our query param PPI, okay, request dot query dot PPI. Okay, yeah. So yeah, after this cancel URL. So process dot env dot next auth URL, and dashboard. Okay, I missed dollar, I think here as well. Okay, fine. So this is a cancel URL, okay. Then after this, if this is the case, so then we redirect, give the status code, okay, and then session dot URL, and this should not be null, so exclamatory mark, okay. And now the catch block, okay. So here error is of type any, okay, and we return the status code as 400, and then send the error message in the form of a JSON, okay. So that is error dot message. Yep. So this is the endpoint to create a session with this Stripe, okay. So now going back to our form payment, okay. So here this is where the endpoint should be configured. So here unlock now button. So here we will configure the API endpoint which we have just written, so which is API slash checkout. So API slash checkout slash session question mark, okay, and this is parameter, okay. PPI is project ID, so project.id, okay. This is so on clicking on this unlock now, we are going to trigger this API endpoint. Okay, fine. So once the payment is made for particular project, we have to update the Stripe payment ID for that project, so that we'll know that the payment for this project has been made. So for that also we are going to create one endpoint. So inside same checkout folder, so let's go ahead and create a one endpoint here. So for that the path will be so like this, that is check, and since this is unique to each project ID and also depends upon the session ID of the Stripe payment. Okay, so inside this we are going to define a new file called studio.ts. Okay, indicating this is kind of like a update to the particular studio. Okay, so studio.ts. So now in this same again we are going to create a Stripe object. Okay, first, so that is Stripe. So naming this is new Stripe. Okay, and pass the secret key, that is Stripe secret key. Okay, and this should not be null, and here API version. So API version is this. Okay, fine. So now write the handler. So export default async function handler. So the input param for this would be next API request object and the next API response object. Okay, so that is next API response. Okay, in this first we are going to take two variables to capture the session ID and the PPI as a query parameters, that is request dot query dot session ID as a string. Okay, and then one more variable to capture the project ID, so PPI. So this is going to be request dot query dot PPI as string. Okay, fine. So and create one variable to retrieve the session of from the Stripe checkout sessions. Okay, so that is await Stripe dot checkout dot sessions dot retrieve. Okay, and here pass our session ID. Okay, this will give us the session object, and now we'll make checks here. Okay, if session dot payment status is equals to paid, and again check if the session dot metadata dot project ID is equals to whatever the PPI query param we have received. Okay, this should be PPI. Okay, so here the check is again project ID. If this is equals to PPI, then we will know that the payment is for this particular project only. Okay, then accordingly we will update our projects table. So let's import a DB object. So DB from DB core. Okay, and then DB dot project dot update the project based on ID. So that is where ID is PPI, and set the Stripe payment ID to the session dot ID which we have received. Okay, fine. So this will confirm that the payment for this particular project has been made. Okay, then after this we are going to return success status as 200, and in JSON object we will set success variable as to true, that is success true. Fine, then after this we are returning if it is not, then we assume it will be failed, then we are going to return success as false. So this is the endpoint to update the Stripe payment ID for individual project. Okay, fine. So going back to a form payment, so this is where I am going to use the query object from a user router hook, and then accordingly call the API which we have configured based on the waiting payment variable. So if it is true, then we will make that the payment is successful. Okay, so here first I'm going to get the query object from use router. Okay, and here we're going to use the use query hook from React query, and here keep the ID name for this as a check payment. Okay, and here in the callback function, so I'm going to make a get request to the API which we have just configured, that is slash API slash checkout slash check. Okay, slash query dot project ID. Okay, and then session ID, so that is session ID to our studio. Okay, fine. After this, so we are not going to cache this, so making it to 0, and a refetch interval, so for every 10 seconds it will be checking this. Okay, and enabled. Okay, this will be enabled only if the waiting payment value is true. Okay, and then on success callback function we are going to call the handle payment success callback function. Okay, so here the handle payment success. Okay, fine. So now the waiting payment variable will be set only if the project ID we receive in the query param is equals to the project ID. Then only we will set waiting payment as a true. Okay, then once the waiting payment is set to true, the above use query, that is API call, will be made and the payment will be successfully marked. Okay, and the DB will also be updated. Okay, so that as soon as this component is mounted, the first thing that we will be checking using the use effect hook is if the query project ID is equals to the whatever the ID we received in the project object is matching, then we will set that variable and accordingly the API call will be made. Okay, so that is set waiting payments if query.ppi is equals to project.id, and this depends on query object and also the project object. Okay, yep. So this is it. Okay, so now let's go ahead and check for one of the project and see if you're able to make payment successfully and see the change in the text. Okay, so going back to the browser. Okay, okay, so let me open freshly, that is, yep. So enter this, try to log in, so mail will be sent to our Gmail. Okay, so let me log in first. Yep, so logged in, and now you see here the studio check 2 is the payment is not yet made. So now let's try for this. Okay, so I'm clicking on this. So once we click on this, the session whatever API we have created to connect to our to create a Stripe session, that will be triggered. Okay, so on clicking on this, it should take us to the Stripe payment. Okay, so for testing purposes, I have made this value to 1. Okay, ideally it will be 590 rupees, and now here I'll be entering my email and also my card is details which I have saved. Okay, so here you can give your card details. Okay, and accordingly now, so once I click on this pay, the success URL whichever we configure, that is dashboard with the session ID and also the project ID, should be redirected to our dashboard page. Okay, fine. So on clicking on pay, here it is taking me to the confirm section. So I've received OTP, so I'm entering that. okay, and clicking on submit. It is processing. Yep. So and it was successful. On successful payment, it redirected to our dashboard page with the session ID and the PPI query param. Okay, fine. So now if you go and check the check to project, you see here the Stripe payment ID has been set for this project, and accordingly if it is that is waiting training variable is true, then this content will be showcased. So now if we head back to our DB and refresh query our projects table, if you see the check to, there is a Stripe payment ID, so making that this project has received the payment. Okay, fine. So now going back to our project card. Okay, so if you go here, project card, here is waiting payment. Okay, that is uh, project.stripe payment ID is not null, so this is false. Okay, and is waiting training project.stripe payment ID is not null, so this is true, and anything is true, so is waiting training. Okay, fine. So if you see he's waiting training, this is what the content should be showcased. Here your studio is ready to be trained. Okay, and the list of the image URLs that has been uploaded to this project, and also the button to start training. Here eventually we'll configure the API to start the training, okay, in the coming video. Okay, so now this successfully whatever we thought of accomplishing to connect it to make a payment to the Stripe and update our DB with the Stripe payment ID, and be able to see the change in our project called layout. Okay, so that is done. So this is it for this video. In the coming video we will deal with other APIs. Okay, thank you so much.